Hi, everybody. This is Erica from the Company of Cards. If you're new, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Thank you to those of you who watched my video with Dr. Lottie yesterday. She's great. If you've not seen it, it's the video right before this one. And we really had a lot of fun, and I think you'll enjoy the conversation if you haven't seen it already. So, I just have a few things to talk about. I just want to say before I get started that I just had a reading with a client, and I love doing client readings. I love using Lenormand to help people, um, you know, figure out their own stuff. And I had a reading today with a new person, and it was great to the point where I feel like this is somebody who I will absolutely have in a year in one of my Sunday conversations. So, mark this space, November 17th, uh, 2026, whatever Sunday is around that date. You will meet, I hope, the client that I read for because I think you'd enjoy the conversation. So, all right, to go from the sublime to the gross. I'm not really, a gossipy kind of reader, except sometimes I am. And so I didn't want to let the day pass, and the day seems to have passed. This time change is crazy. Here it's only like a little bit after 5, and it might as well be midnight. So, um, yeah, energetically feels like time to go to sleep. But I didn't want the day to pass without addressing one of the many elephants in the room in terms of scandal, and that has to do with who Bubba might be. Now, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, we all know that there's been that huge dump of emails uh, from the Epstein estate. These are emails that Epstein had written um, to people like Michael Wolff, whom I've referenced before, the journalist, and to the infamous, notorious Ghislaine Maxwell. But there are also letters between Epstein and his brother, Jeff, I think is his name. No, Mark. Jeff is Jeff. Jeff is Jeffrey Epstein. Mark is his brother. And so, you know, the talk yesterday and today is about a letter that is that Jeff, no, that Mark wrote to Jeff. And it was asking the question about whether or not Trump had, uh, you know what I mean, loan, that's the word, uh, Bubba. So, now all the speculation is, well, who is Bubba? So, of course, everybody's mind went to Bill Clinton because Bubba was one of the names that he was called. Back in the day, it was Bubba, Slick Willie. You know, I mean, if you're a certain age, you remember that presidency. And so, what is to make it funnier, Mark Epstein wrote to say, yeah, no, it wasn't Bill Clinton. But what he doesn't say is, yeah, no, nobody blew anybody. That's not even a thing. What are you talking about? No, he just said it wasn't Bill Clinton. So that means that the speculation, of course, continues. Mark Epstein says it's not Bill. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it's not Bill. Well, then who's Bubba? So then it gets even crazier because apparently Ghislaine Maxwell, in another life when she was you know, um, to the manor born and well off, had a horse. And guess what the horse's name was? Yeah, Bubba. So is that the Bubba we're talking about? So it's all, yuck, 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 ha, 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 funny, funny. But there's a third option as to who Bubba is. And it's really, I'll wait and tell you what the third thing is too. So what I think I'm going to do, I mean, I never do stuff like this, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pull three cards for each of the three options. I haven't told you what the third option is as to who Bubba is, but I'm going to pull three cards. The first line will be for um, Clinton. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it. The second line will be for Ghislaine's horse. And I'm just going to say this. Bubba's mouth's not big enough. And not Bubba's mouth. Um, the felon's mouth is not big enough for that to have been the case. So I don't think that's it. But you never know. And then we have option number three. And I will just put option three over here for the time being because my table's not big enough to them under each other. So let's look first to see if it's Clinton. Okay. And we have the mountain, the cross, and the crossroads. It is not Bill Clinton. Bubba is not Bill Clinton because he doesn't go that way, if you know what I mean. These are two no cards. It's not Clinton. So is it Ghislaine's horse? Oh. So we have the sun, the tower, and the moon. You know, classic Lenormandists would say that if you have the sun in the line, that it's a yes. But I'm just, like I said before I even pulled cards, I don't think so. I don't think the physics of it would work. The geometry of it would work. Because that's too big. You know what I mean? For for the felon's little teeny mouth. And I mean, would he want to be known on any level as that, as somebody who, did that? So it's not Bubba. I mean, it's Bubba, but it's not Clinton. I'm getting myself all confused. It's not Clinton, and it's not Ghislaine's horse, Bubba. The third option, we have the coffin, the tree, and the key. I think it's the third option, and this is not funny. So the third option for who Bubba would be, I found out, is that on the dark web, which is a place that, I mean, I don't even want to know how to get to it, but we've heard of it, the dark web. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. On the dark web, when um, pedophiles are referring to young boys, they use the catch-all name Bubba. So you've got Mark asking Jeff whether the felon blew Bubba. Quiet as it's kept. This is like a secret, like in the closet secret. Um, and I'm just gonna say about the tree that, trees have many branches, and I think that the felon's proclivities are wide ranging. I don't think they extend to Ghislaine's horse, but they are wide ranging. And then the key is a yes card. So I think it was a coded question asking whether um, the felon had been with, you know, a younger male. I'm just going to leave that there. Oh, okay. So anyway, so sorted all of this, right? Okay. So now we know that as of last night, Sunday night, the felon did a 180 and went from saying that, the Epstein files are a hoax, a Democratic hoax, they don't exist, to saying, oh, I think they should be released. Now, why was that? Well, we know that Lindsey Graham and other Republican leaders went to Mar-a-Lago this weekend, probably to tell the felon that he was in some hot water, that there would be enough votes to make this thing pass, um, to allow the Epstein files to be shown, and that it would pass by enough of a number that it would be a veto-proof majority. In other words, what's going to happen is the vote's going to be taken supposedly tomorrow in the House. From there, it goes to the Senate. I think that these lawmakers told the felon there are enough votes between Republicans and Democrats in both houses. And by the way, you need a two-thirds majority in both houses, such that if the felon were to try to veto the measure and not have the Epstein files released, that veto would be overridden, meaning the veto wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. He wouldn't be able to veto it. So I think that the plan is for him to say, oh, whatever, yeah, fine, release them. Because then he looks once again as though he wants everything released. Like people are going to forget that he spent all this time not wanting them released, calling Marjorie Taylor Greene all kinds of names because her name was on the list of people of Republicans who wanted them released. So what's with the 180? I think he got that word saying that, this would not be veto proof. I mean, that it would be veto proof, that you won't be able to veto it. There's enough votes to push it forward. So he looks like a good guy who says, oh, okay, that's fine. Let the people see. And then meanwhile, it'll pass in the House. Then it goes to the Senate. Now, the Senate could delay or they could take an immediate vote. But remember, there are a lot of senators who didn't want these files released. So now they look like the ones with egg on their face so that the felon can say, hey, it's not my fault that they're not out. I said, show it, go ahead and show it. So did the House. It's the Senate that's holding things up. Don't be mad at me, be mad at the Senate. Further, let's say that the Senate says, yeah, let the files out. So now we would have had the House and the Senate and the felon saying, release the Kraken, put the files out. The next step is that the felon's DOJ, Pam Bondi, etc., would say, oh, well, some of these cases are still being litigated. So by definition, we cannot release those files. In other words, so that it would all have been for nothing, but the felon and Congress would look like they were on the right side of things. They wanted it all out. It's just it's a complication of the law that it's not out because things are being litigated. You see what I'm saying? It's like a backdoor kind of way to not let the files out. So like and they're it's all delaying tactics. So I guess what I want to ask is, I mean, it's pretty clear why he did the 180, so I don't feel like I need to look at that. Um, but I guess we want to look at, and I think it's a done deal that it will pass the measure will pass the House. Will the measure pass the Senate? That's the question. So I'm going to use the letter, and I want to know whether that'll stand for the files, and whether the Senate will move them forward. Okay, so we're going to use the letter that will stand for the Epstein files, and we want to know what will the Senate vote? What will the Senate do? Okay, here's the letter. Oops. So these are the Epstein files. Okay, so you have the stork, the woman, the letter, the coffin, and the birds. I feel like this is the Senate, and I think things move forward in the House, positive change, so that's really good. This is the women, right? That this is about the young girls and women. Now they're women. Um, these are the files, but I can mirror the women with the coffin. I still think they're going to be shut down. I think that it could be that the Senate says we'll look at this in January. Happy holidays. We're entering the Thanksgiving Christmas season, so we're going to shut this down for now. I think they will. They won't take it up before January. At which point, by the way, um, the Democrats can push for it because the CR will be up again. We'll be looking at another government shutdown again. And the Democrats could say, listen, you need to open the files. But until then, delay, 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 of course, is the order of the day. And I think the Senate will delay a vote. Um, we have the stork and it mirrors the birds. I think that this is the Senate saying, it'll just be better this way. Everybody can cool off and we can enjoy the holidays and we'll deal with this when it's time to deal with it. So that's what I think is going to happen. That it will pass the House, then it will go to the Senate. The Senate will stall. And in fact, the Senate stalling could have been part of the deal that was made by those lawmakers with the felon. Listen, felon, if you say release the Kraken, if you say that you're in favor of opening things up, then we as senators will slow walk it until after the holidays. I think that's what's going to happen. So, supposedly there's a vote tomorrow in the House. I do think it will pass in the House, but I think it will languish until January in the Senate. Um, Another thing is that I find kind of curious. So you all know who Rogan is. Joe Rogan is a podcaster, and he's, one of those, bro type guys, and he can't really seem to decide which side he's on. One day he's on one side, one day he's on the other side. But of late, the big thing that he's been talking about that he's sort of resurrected is um, the fake attempt, because that's what I think it was, entertainment purposes only, and allegedly, the fake attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. I know in my previous videos I kept calling it Butlerville. I don't know why, but it's Butler, Pennsylvania. So Joe Rogan, the podcaster, is like, you know what? Something about this doesn't feel right. Well, we could have told him that. As I said, I think it was a staged false flag thing. Uh, we've seen his ear, his naked, undamaged, unadulterated ear. There's no scar, there's no mark, there's no nothing. And I mean, I know grazing doesn't sound like much, but if you're grazed by a bullet, pretty sure, especially if it's your ear, pretty sure it's going to leave a mark. Supposedly it drew blood. Remember that fake blood that was all. Remember the big sanitary napkin he had on his ear? Um, but Rogan is speculating that this was fake. This is really interesting because why is Rogan bringing it up now? Let me ask that. Why is Rogan's kind of he's not an old guy, so we'll let him be the young guy. And he'd love that, the idea of being a young, cool podcaster bro type. So you have the young man stand for Rogan. And I want to know, why is Rogan resurrecting the incident at Butler, theorizing that everything we've been told is not everything there is, and speculating that it could have been staged and that the felon knew about it and that the shooter, I think his name was Thomas Crooks, who was killed in the shooting by the agents, was trained not to shoot the felon, but to, you know, shoot in that direction. Now, one of the things that the FBI has always said about this guy, Crooks, is that he didn't have a social media presence. But in this day and age, you can't make a statement without somebody fact checking it. And people have fact checked, and in fact, he did have a social media presence. And that presence indicated that he was Trump, 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 Trump all the way. So if he's Trump, 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 Trump all the way, why would he try to unalive him? Um, that maybe he wasn't trying to do that. Maybe he had been trained to make it look like that's what he was trying to do. But the fact of the matter is, he died and somebody else died. Firefighter who was there at the rally died. So, which makes me think very much of things like snuff films and, cinema verite, like what people had to die in order to make the false flag operation look really authentic. If that's the case, listen, his base, the felon's base, forgives him everything. Do they not? Like he said, he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and he can grab the women by the right. So they forgive him everything. I don't know if it was Ghislaine's horse, whether they'd forgive him for that, but they forgive him for a lot. But I'm not sure that people would be so forgiving, his base would be forgiving, if what happened at Butler was proven to have been a false flag operation that he was in on. That could be a worse kiss of death than the Epstein files, actually, in the eyes of his base. So I want to know, why is Joe Rogan bringing this up now? And we're going to use the young guy as in my deck. That will stand for Joe Rogan. Okay, so this stands for Joe Rogan. So we have clouds, we have woman, we have Joe Rogan, we have the anchor, and we have the tree. So, there's a lot of confusion about this whole Butler situation. It's kind of like the thing happened and then kind of died. You don't even hear the felon reference the incident. Oh, remember that time when I got, he doesn't even reference it. I think he doesn't want, in the moment, it was very, cinematic, with his fist in the air and the blood on his ear. But I feel like he doesn't want attention called to it, because then people will start asking questions. So it's been shrouded in mystery. And instead, what's taken the center stage is the whole Epstein situation, the womanizing pedophilia thing, you know. Uh, Rogan's in the center. You know, an anchor can keep you safe. If you're a ship and there's a storm, you want to be at anchor, or it can keep you stuck. It can bring you down. And I think this whole Epstein thing, of course, is bringing the felon down. And I think that Rogan senses a sinking ship. And so I think he's just going to dogpile and say, you know, and in addition to the whole Epstein thing, wait a minute, what about that Butler situation? I think that's what it is. I think that they smell blood in the water. It is the felon's blood. And I think now you're going to see increasingly um, the the mob start to turn against him. And Rogan, I think, is one of the leaders of the mob. You know, if this is the felon's um, legacy, you know, that he's built up, well, it's a way to cast doubt on it because people are asking that question, what will come after him? Because we're looking over his head. He can't be reelected. He's old. So what comes next? So on Rogan, I pulled three cards: the mountain, the mice, and Clover. I think it's subversive. I think that Rogan is trying to put even more of the skids on the felon by reminding people about Butler, sort of putting up roadblocks in the felon's way, um, making people say, wait a minute, making people be worried and anxious and questioning, is he who he thought we thought he was? We thought he was the great orange hope. But between the Epstein files and now our God, Joe Rogan, is saying that Butler might have been staged and the felon knew about it. Ooh, this will create a lot of anxiety and it will happen quick, fast, and in a hurry. Listen, I've used this name before, but every time I think about the felon, the person from history who comes to mind is Mussolini, who started out all big and bad and ended up hanged by the crowd upside down next to his mistress. So hmm, I think Rogan smells the blood in the water, and I think he wants to be one of the instruments of the felon's fall. That's what I think. Here's this anchor, right, being dragged down. And the message that Rogan is trying to send is that, you know, in the future, the felon will fall. And then we have the tree, which is this legacy, and the clarifiers are the tower, the crossroads, and fish. So if this is his legacy, um, it's fading fast, and the governmental mechanisms will choose a different path. I think that people will start to move away from the felon. Uh, and I think that there will be a lot of emotion around this, a lot of feelings of betrayal and confusion and doubt. Wait, you mean I stopped talking to my parents over this and this guy was a con the whole time and I didn't realize it? Right? I think that MAGA people um, are really going to have to look in the mirror and say, did I get snowed by this guy? Did I get conned? And I think Joe Rogan will be one of the vehicles to help them arrive at that place. And Rogan will say, he'll make it easier for them. He'll say, I too drank the Kool-Aid. I'm just like you. You're not a bad person. You just got taken in by a bad guy. This does not mean any good thing for the fella. There, he's in very dangerous waters. Mussolini at the end of the war. Now, I would like to know one last thing for today. Um, so we know that Vance is waiting in the wings, chomping at the bit, checking his eyeliner in the mirror, and that his Rockbridge handlers, if you don't know about Rockbridge, I think that's the name of it. Yeah, I think that's it. Google that. It's the consortium of technocrats um, who believe that we should be living under the authority of what they're calling an aristocracy. And this aristocracy is, you know, people who have a lot of money. That's the aristocracy. It's not how you're born, it's how much money you have. And they, the rest of us are just peasants. Well, Vance is their puppet. So I would like to know what Rockbridge and Vance are thinking right now. So let's see. Why don't we use the birds? Because they are sort of a consortium, like a think tank, deep-pocketed tank. What are they thinking about all of this between Butler and the Epstein files and the flip-flop of the felon? Um, and the ill health of the felon. What are their thoughts right now? So we're going to look for the birds, and that will stand for Rockbridge and Vance. And then I think that'll be enough for a Monday night. Okay, so we have the rider, the tree, Rockbridge and Vance, bouquet, and the ring. So, the message that they're taking from all of this is essentially that they need to sort of seal things up, get things signed off on, make sure that Vance is with the program and knows what he's been ordered to do by his masters, the Rockbridge crew, because they're about to be able to sign off on this contract. Um, you know, Again, speaking of aristocracy and legacy, they really believe that their ship's about to come in, that they will be rewarded for all of their long, hard work. I mean, they've been working on this stuff since Obama was elected the first time, and they really feel like their ship's about to come in, and this will be, um, their their legacy, which is this aristocracy that they're forming, where we work for them, we are beholden to them for our goods, and we provide services, and they give us goods in return, and but meanwhile, they make all the decisions. So I pulled some cards on this, and I got the fox, the mice, and the tower. Yeah. So their legacy, their intention, right? And they're sneaky about it. They're very smart and they're very sneaky. They essentially want to destroy government as we know it. And I'm not saying there are not aspects of the government that need to be restructured, but that's not what they're about. They're about tearing down, eroding democracy. And all they can think about, this is them, the Rockbridge crew and Vance, all they can think about is the death of you know who, because that's what they need to have happen in order to move it all the way in, right? Um, and there are lots of them. They have lots of allies and friends, and they're not letting the felon know that they're hot on his heels, chomping at the bit, waiting for him to go. But this is front and center, right under them. When I've told you many times that when you see this combination, it means physical demise. And we're talking about you know who. That's what they're waiting for. So every little chink in his armor, whether it's, more rumors about Butler or whether it's the Epstein files, whatever it is, this erodes the felon's health, mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, all of it. And all of that hastens this. So they're just waiting for that. They believe that they will be rewarded, and the clarifiers are the letter, the book, and Clover. So they have plans once they get their reward and they get in power via Vance. They have plans all figured out, all mapped out that are secret, and they will implement them quick, fast, and in a hurry. And then we have the ring, and the clarifiers are woman, crossroads, and child. And one of the things that they're committed to is essentially moving women off any kind of stage, any kind of public arena, moving them off, and essentially, you know, um, relegating them to lesser status, the way the patriarchy always wants to do with women, right? Because this is about infantilizing them, keeping them barefoot and pregnant, keeping them disempowered, uh, keeping them, what is the term? Tradwife? Yeah. Tradwives who have lots of babies and look really good in that kind of Trumpy blonde way. Erica Kirk. Why does she have to have my name? Anyway, yeah. So that's what they're doing. They're waiting for the day. They have made their plans. Their plans are ready to be set in motion. We've got people like Curtis Yarvin. We've got Bannon. We've got who is it? Oh, Richard Vogt. Um, they're all kind of sitting on the edge of their seats, waiting for the felon to implode one way or the other. But of course, this for them would be the ideal way. Not that we disagree, but yeah. So this promises to be quite an interesting week. I don't know if they've changed the date for the vote, but last I heard, the vote in the House on moving the Epstein stuff forward. Well, we already have um, the permission to move it forward. The vote, to take the vote on opening the files or letting the files be publicized will be taken in the House. I heard tomorrow. I suspect, as I said earlier, that the Senate will It'll go to the Senate after that, and I think the Senate will sit on it till after the holidays. That's what I think. Um, and I think in the end, the DOJ will say, "Oh, we wish we could, but there's pending litigation, so it all has to stay sealed," meaning that all of this will have been a futile exercise. But anyway, the felon is in danger. He knows he's in danger. He is really. I'll do it. You know what? Maybe I'll come on tomorrow, and tomorrow or Wednesday, I don't know, and I will do a deep dive on how he's doing. It's been a while since I've done that, so I'll do a deep dive on him tomorrow. All right, you all have a great rest of your night, and I will see you very soon. Take care.